Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and to shed more light on the new project of the Suez Canal expansion, we're joined over the phone by Dr. Ali Mansy, economic expert. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Hello, it's good to be with you again.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Dr. Ali, the Suez Canal Authority announced that a project to expand parts of the canal is expected to be completed after 2 years of work by July 2023. What's the significance of this project in raising the navigation capacity of the waterway?
Well, the length of this project is 24 months. As we know, it started in July 2021. Maybe there is not yet precise, accurate data about the increasing capacity technical-wise or the actual cost, but it's very intuitive to say that the project will increase the overall capacity of the canal maybe by 1/3. Of course, in terms of the ships, size of ships, the maneuvering time needed, and the waiting time, which is considered the waste or economic loss of the global supply chain, of course, and definitely the width and depth of the canal. Let me say here that aiming to economic development requires an anticipative rather than reactive policy. Taking on to this project now is very essential given the forecasted expected growth in global trade volume and considering costs, because I know some would argue about that. It's important to note that such developmental critical investments are the right way for the economic growth. So whatever the cost is, it will still have a very high positive ROI, especially when we perform economic feasibility to take into consideration the expected lifetime value of the project, not only in the coming few years, which in this case is very high.
Mm-hmm. Right, sir. How would the project help in increasing the trade volume between Egypt and the whole world?
Well, it would help in two dimensions. First, of course, is the size of trade between Egypt and the rest of the world. This is very important. But the second dimension, which I consider more important, is taking part of the global trade volume itself. And this is through being an essential component of the supply chain in the global trade between countries and mega companies. As different companies make the trade between each other and mega companies, of course, Egypt taking part of this trade as being a component of the supply channel is very important. It has very high merit. The more they trade, the more of this trade passes through the canal. But this requires that the canal should be ready for the future needs of replying. Maritime trade channels need to be most convenient and economic channel worldwide. And innovation development is taking place in this industry as well. So the canal should be ready to handle the more demands, future demands quantitatively and qualitatively, as well as the increasing sophisticated needs of that follow that. Mm-hmm. And let me say here, let me illustrate with some numbers that during 2021, the Suez Canal, the global growth in trade increased by 3.7% versus an increase in Suez Canal by 8.5%. Which means that the increase in Suez Canal in its relative weight in global trade is increasing more than double of the global growth rate.
Yes, go ahead.
And also that not only that, but the revenues of the Suez Canal in 2021 increased by 12.8%, which indicates that Suez Canal is not only growing due to the global growth in trade, no, it's also growing in providing more competitive advantage and in adopting more effective and efficient pricing policies. Mm-hmm. And this is why the revenue is increasing more than the world is increasing.
Right. Sir, to what extent could the new project also boost investments in the canal's economic zone?
As you mentioned earlier, the world is getting more sophisticated at all levels, including, of course, maritime transport. And this implies that Suez Canal is not only a channel or a canal. The ships that pass require more needs and more sophisticated demands. So the more value added across this phase of their supply chain, the more value added Suez Canal can provide, the more revenue she can get out of it, according, of course, to the business and the economic model. So more demand for, and this is something else, that more demand for specialized human capital work in the Suez Canal industry are required to serve those needs, which means that there will be higher labor demand levels, and not only higher levels, but also more advanced and forward-looking. Because working in the Suez Canal is becoming a green in itself. So the benefit is both economic and developmental, and for the society. It reflects on the unemployment rate, of course. And the benefit, of course, is obvious, but the challenge remains in how to be more effective and more impactful on scaling this benefit from the Suez Canal and reflecting it onto the rest of the economy, not only in numbers. I mean to maximize the positive multiplier effect associated with it, and how to spread this effect as widely as possible across the rest of the country. So that this will remain to be a future challenge.
Yes, sir, what's the importance of the expansion project in avoiding stock issues like what had happened with the Ever Given container?
This incident was very important, and I guess, of course, technical experts can answer this better than I would, but let me reflect on it from an economic point of view. That is very intuitive. I mean, this project is very intuitive, and it's a natural step forward. Not only because of the Evergreen incident, but the needs and demands are evolving as well. And this incident has spotted the light on the fact that continuous development is essential. And this was the merit back in 2014, 2016, when the first expansion project was successfully launched, that it was considered to be an initiative and first. So I guess that we shall see phases of continuous development to be happening in the next decade, and not only this project. I guess it should be followed by another one or two more projects within the decade. As from what happened with this incident of Evergreen, we have spotted and we have to work on it, and this is a continuous process.
Yes, sir, also a Suez Canal International Conference at the Expo 2020 Dubai kicked off on Sunday. What's the significance of this conference?
This conference is considered a focal pivot point into the future, as this event is, of course, is very well organized and is led by Mrs. Naveen Gama, the Ministers of Trade and Industry, and General Osama Rabia, the Managing Director of the canal. And it reflects the pivot in marketing and pricing efficiency provided by the policymaker of the canal, as we mentioned. It's a strong message that announces and signals that Suez Canal is booming, thus attracting more market share into it, and with the expansion policy we discussed earlier.
Sir, the event aims to discuss ways to support global trade in facing various challenges. How do you assess the importance of cooperation in this domain?
Let me mention here that one of the main topics being discussed globally in the last 10 years is the global value chains, what's called global value chains, the GVCs, and its importance to the global trade. As the world now is pivoting towards more clustered economies of scale, thus trade is not performed only between countries as it is performed between hubs of industries. But because the demand is increasing and because the competition is very high in terms of advancement, innovation, technology, and cost, of course. So we find a product that has numerous phases, each performed in a different region around the world, as each region is specializing according to its factors of production endowments. Thus, the critical factor here is the trade between those regions and hubs in order for their value chain to come into action and to operate. And the two parameters into that, the cost and the convenience. There are two parameters that would make all that work effectively. And this creates a great opportunity for Suez Canal itself in the near future if we can capitalize on those two components, lowering the cost and providing more convenience. This would attract more market share of the global trade. And the demand is there. The problem is in the disruption in the supply chain. So improving the efficiency of Suez Canal improves the overall supply chain for the clients.
Sir, how do you weigh efforts made by various ministries and economic authorities to crystallize the Egyptian vision towards supporting global trade?
Of course, those efforts are very significant and they are tangible. As we've seen that Suez Canal is increasing its revenue, maybe you can mention later on. And those efforts should be on two dimensions, externally and internally. Externally, of course, is what what's happening, and the marketing policy and the pricing policy, and addressing, trying to acquire more market share by providing better services, whether technical or non-technical service, and other complementary service. And also externally, we create options and we grab the opportunities. But capitalizing on that indicates the importance of internal efforts as well. Internal efforts of the economic model of the Suez Canal, of some public reforms that has to be taking place, and innovating and leveraging the human capital endowment in Egypt. And this is very important because preparing more skilled labor force in order to be effective in meeting this demand is really important. And we see that this is being done in an upward-looking curve, of course, in Egypt. This is very good. Yet it's a continuous process, and it should never end. It should keep on going.
Mm-hmm. Right. In the second session, which is an open dialogue with a group of active personalities in the maritime transport sector at the regional and global levels, how would or what do you expect to be the benefits of such a dialogue?
Well, of course, this is a very important dialogue, as Suez Canal offers very critical service to the whole world. And addressing this issue, it has to come with the highest level of technical efficiency and professionality, as this is the way to signal how ready the canal is, and how the services that the canal provides are really needed for the rest of the world, for the global trade to take place, and increasing the market share of the global trade. The percentage of the growing global trade is expected to be around in 2022, which is higher than last year. So the demand is increasing. The right way to address this demand is to, from a technical point of view, is to signal how ready this canal is in covering this demand and covering the future gaps.
Yes. Right. Dr. Mansy, the revenues of Suez Canal increased during the past year despite the economic impacts of coronavirus outbreak. So what are your expectations for the 2022 revenues?
Yes, despite the coronavirus, Suez Canal has hit an all-history high in its revenues in 2021, reaching above $6.3 billion. Versus 5.6 in the previous year, and it's expected to next year. It's expected to have one more hit on its all-time history by achieving maybe $7 billion, and I expect the growth rate, the annual growth rate, to remain between 12 and 15%. And it's important to note here that the increase in global trade is not affected so much by the coronavirus, because, and this indicates how essential it has become. This proves the point of the global value chain, and that no one industry can operate on its own without interrelating with other industries in its value chain. So regardless of different economic hits, the global trade will still be an essential part of the evolution of the world, and we can never go backwards. So the question is how to capitalize on this, and how to make the most benefit out of it, and how to be taking part of this global trade. As I see that the percentage of the revenue of Suez is not yet very high compared to the GDP of Egypt. So this means there is still more room for expansion and for growth, which I hope will successfully be happening. I'm sure it will be successfully happening next year, by hitting more than $7 billion in the revenues of Suez Canal.
Right. Well, I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Ali Mansy, economic expert. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, now we go to a short break and we'll be right back.